Thanks for tuning in live to Proline TV as we take a look at fantasy football. That's right. We haven't talked a lot of fantasy football yet. Awful lot of college football talk, a lot of talk previewing the upcoming season in the NFL. But now we get an opportunity to talk some fantasy football because fantasy football and the NFL, there's a big tie in there. We talked about that on the Playbook ATS podcast show yesterday with our top handicappers, that to make you a better handicapper, you really should pay attention to fantasy football. At the very least, if you're not into fantasy football leagues, just pay attention to some of the better sites as far as information provided in fantasy football. And that's why we wanted to have on my favorite fantasy football site and my favorite fantasy football analyst. Of course, you've seen him maybe before whenever we're talking golf here on the channel, Jared Smola. How's it going, Jared?
Good. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for the compliments. Yeah, I mean, it's fantasy football season for me since the Super Bowl ended, because that's when our rankings went up for this season. But it's always fun now when you have everyone else kind of coming in, and we can help people out, kind of help them get caught up and then ready to go for their drafts.
Yeah, because you get started real early on, and this is what it's all about. So this is when everybody's really getting the itch. So matter of fact, my redraft is not for another few weeks. Of course, we've already had our rookie draft in the Dynasty League, but there's still a lot of other rookie drafts out there that have yet to be underway, kicked off, whatever you want to say. And we are going to talk about that later on in the show as well. So stay tuned for that. We're going to talk a little bit Dynasty rookie draft. And we are going to get into the main reason for this video, and that is Jared's top 10 sleepers for this year in fantasy football. Before we do that, I'm going to get to one of my favorite aspects of the Draft Sharks website, and that is Shark Bites. And this is a very simple, this is, again, something I think that, if, again, you're not big into fantasy football, but you want all really relevant information for football, check this out more than anything. This gives you updates as they happen across the league with players offensively and defensively. So I want to go into this, Jared, because there's been a lot going on. So let's spend the next few minutes talking about some of the big stories, not only in fantasy, but NFL in general, starting with the fact that James Cook finally gets his deal. So what does this deal do to was this the deal you think James Cook was looking for? Was this just one of those deals that both sides win? And what does this do also to their backfield? Because Ray Davis is a young running back that is itching to get in, as you can see here, as a related player for sure.
Yeah, I was frankly a little surprised that Cook got this deal from Buffalo. I kind of felt like it was trending towards him eventually just deciding to play out the final year of his deal and probably hitting free agency in the offseason. This is a Bills offense that obviously revolves around Josh Allen. So the fact that they, felt like they needed to give Cook this kind of, it's a fair deal. It's like a market value deal. Again, you can see in this Shark Bite here, it's basically the same deal that Kyron Williams just got for the Rams. And I think those guys are pretty similar players in terms of talent and what they bring to their offense. I mean, they're different players, right? I mean, Cook's more the big play guy, the pass catching guy. But I think they're similar talent. So I think it was a fair deal. As far as what it means for Cook this season, I think it obviously eliminates any risk of a holdout or him like getting a minor injury in season and deciding not to play through it. To me, it doesn't mean much for what his role is going to be. I think his role is his role in this offense. He's not going to be a workhorse back. He's going to get enough work to, pay off, I think, as an RB2 in fantasy. But he's a guy who really outperformed his opportunity last season. He scored all those touchdowns.
Yeah.
I think he's going to see some regression there. So Cook is not a guy I've been drafting much in fantasy so far.
Interesting. And of course, Kevin in our league won the championship, and that was a big reason. James Cook had a big year for him. Okay. Next up, let's scroll down until I see something that I want to talk about. How about Rondell Moore and the Minnesota Vikings? What does this do? I don't know if there was big expectations that Moore was going to be a big part of their depth at wide receiver. Can't really count on the guy, and this is why.
Yeah, no, I think this is pretty much a nothing burger. Maybe Moore would have seen some snaps in those first 3 games with Jordan Addison out, but I think it's going to be it's going to be Jalen Naylor as their number 2 for those first 3 games. I don't think it's pretty irrelevant for fantasy. I think it's going to be Jefferson, Hawkinson, and then the running backs that are going to be, controlling most of the touches for that offense until they get Addison back.
Does this help any depth players on Minnesota? Anybody that might have thought that they didn't have a chance at contributing?
I mean, so again, it's Naylor. Yeah, you can pull up the depth chart here. It's Naylor. They drafted Ty Felton, and then I believe, Lucky Jackson, I think, has been running ahead of Ty Felton even in camp so far. But again, fantasy wise, I don't think you want to mess with any of these players. Naylor could be someone in deep leagues and DFS those first 3 weeks that you might want to take a shot on. This tends to be an efficient passing game, and he's just going to be on the field. But again, I think you're going to see Jefferson, Hawkinson, and the running backs, control most of the work for the offense.
Okay, let's see. Jordan Love, thumb injury. How serious?
So it's his left thumb, his non-throwing thumb, and the Packers are saying they expect him back at practice next week.
Okay.
So we didn't adjust any projections or rankings on the Packers pass catchers or Jordan Love based on this news. That's a passing game we've been in on so far this offseason. They went so run heavy last year. I think part of that was because of the Jordan Love injuries. He had the groin injury, he had the knee injury. He just wasn't healthy most of last season. So I think you're going to get more passing volume from the Packers this season, which is obviously going to help Love and the pass catcher. So we'll keep an eye on Love coming back from this surgery, but I don't think it's going to be a factor by the time we get to week 1.
Okay. Yeah, their backup is really more of a dual threat, like a old school Collins dual threat. And so that's I'm sure that had a lot to do with their running game last year as well. Let's see. Brandon Ayuk. What's going on with Brandon Ayuk, and how does this shuffle up the San Francisco main targets at wide receiver?
Yeah, I mean, that Ayuk injury last year, it was more than just an ACL. He tore multiple ligaments in his knee. So this is not a surprise to us. We've had him projected to miss the first 5 weeks of the season for a while now. So we actually didn't update our projections on Ayuk or his spot in the rankings based on this news. Now, if you read the actual quote from Shanahan, he says Ayuk might be back around week 6, but he was like, it could be week 5, it could be week 10. So they still don't know exactly. Ayuk is someone for me, unless your league has an IR spot that you can just stick him on, I'm just not that interested in drafting him. I think it's going to be before midseason before you could even think about using him in fantasy lineups. And I think it's just going to be a case where he's not going to be the same player at all this year. I think it's going to be 2026 before we see like vintage Brandon Ayuk again.
And I see a lot of positive news coming out of your site on Ricky Pearsall. I know that Juwan Jennings is wanting a new deal. I guess he's trying to strike while the potential riches are there if they have any money to spend. But he's got an edge now with all this happening, especially at Ayuk, and of course Deebo Samuel gone. But is Pearsall the guy out of this group that might be able to be the one that we really need to keep an eye on the most?
I mean, he might be by default at this point. That these 49ers injuries again are crazy. You have Ayuk. Jennings has been out since like late July with a calf injury, which he also dealt with in the spring. So that's becoming more and more concerning. Demarcus Robinson's probably going to be suspended the first few weeks of the season because of a DUI, I believe it was. Jordan Watkins, their rookie, who was off to a nice start in camp, he has a high ankle sprain. I mean, there is every opportunity for Pearsall to play a big role right out of the gate. And if he gets off to a hot start, like, he might just not look back. So, and this is just an offense you want pieces of. It's always efficient under Kyle Shanahan. We know Brock Purdy, can run this offense efficiently. So
sure.
Yeah, Pearsall's definitely an interesting pick, and he's still going fairly late in fantasy drafts.
So that means Jennings no longer has as much control as far as he thought he did with that contract ask. So, by the way, if you have a dynasty league, and we know that once you put a player on injured reserve, that's it. He can't play the rest of the season. I know a lot's going to depend on what the roster looks like, but that's going to be an interesting decision that you have to make, correct?
Yeah, I mean, that varies by league, too. I know there's some dynasty leagues where you can take guys off IR eventually.
Okay.
But, yeah, I would just say if you're a Brandon Ayuk owner in dynasty or redraft, I would not count on using him in fantasy lineups at all the first half of the season. And I would just not count on him being, like, prime 100% Brandon Ayuk at any point this season.
Okay. Next up, I want to talk about, I do want to talk about the Rams, but that's not the story. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about Matthew Stafford. I'll get him in here. I'm going a little too fast for them to shuffle in the news, but Matthew Stafford's in here somewhere. Yep. So yeah, talk about Matthew Stafford and whether you think that it's good. This is going to be an issue that this is going to be serious potential injury that is going to affect them potentially from being a true Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, it's concerning. And, not so much for Stafford because he's not really on the fantasy radar outside of like 2 quarterback or super flex leagues, but it matters for Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, even Kyron Williams. I think it's a big concern. This is what is he? I think he's 37 years old now. Matt Stafford is. He has a history of back problems. Seems like he was trending in the right direction. He got in that throw. You see on the screen here, he got in that throwing session ahead of their preseason game on Saturday. It seems like it went well, but then he woke up the next morning and was not feeling well. So tough to say at this point. I mean, the good news is I do think Jimmy Garoppolo is one of the better backup quarterbacks in the NFL. I think Garoppolo plus Sean McVay, who just is one of the better offensive minds in the NFL. I think this passing game would stay afloat with Garoppolo. Certainly would be a downgrade. I think, if you told me right now that Stafford was going to miss even a few weeks during the season, I would knock Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams a couple spots down the wide receiver rankings. It would not be a huge bump down, though. Again, I do think Garoppolo would be serviceable in this offense.
But this does, okay, have you already made any decisions on whether or not you're going to drop those 2 receivers a little bit now?
Yep. Yes. If you go on Draft Sharks, we have for each player, we have a baseline projection, which is kind of like the most likely thing that's going to happen with that player this coming season. Then we have the floor projection, which is kind of like worst case scenario. And we have the ceiling projection, which is, his ultimate upside. We have lowered the floor projections on both Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams to kind of account for more of the risk that is on those guys now with the Stafford injury. So that has nudged them down the rankings. Again, not a ton, but they've both moved down, maybe a spot, 2-3 spots.
Okay. Let's talk about the Colts quarterback situation now. Best guess. Who do you think is going to end up starting week 1?
I would still guess Anthony Richardson gets the first shot at this just because of what they have invested in him. And I think he should, honestly.
Sure.
I think Richardson's probably a bust. I think that's most likely at this point, but he's also
it looks like it. Yeah.
But he's also played 10 NFL games after not playing a whole lot.
He's young.
The guy,
he needs a few more years. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's young. He needs reps. So
yeah,
to me, it would make sense to go with Richardson. I don't think I feel very confident that you're going to see both quarterbacks this year.
Okay.
But I think Richardson, that'd be my guess for who gets the week 1 start.
I know this isn't just the note, but it is the team. Madison. How does Madison's injury for the year for the Dolphins? How does that, if at all, mix up their backfield as far as the depth?
Yeah, not a whole lot. I don't even think he was a guarantee to make the final roster. Jalen Wright, I think, is locked in as their number 2 running back. He actually almost made my sleepers list. He was like the last guy off.
Oh,
so we're not going to talk about him today, but I do like Jalen Wright. And then they drafted Ollie Gordon in round 6. So I mean, those guys are now locked in as the top 3. So Madison's injury helps Jalen Wright a little bit. I think it takes away another, threat for the number 2 job. Not that I thought Madison was a threat to begin with. And it also, I think, locks in Ollie Gordon, where he's pretty much a guarantee to make this team now.
Okay. Again, not the story, but the team. So Travis Hunter. Do you think Travis Hunter is going to end up, what percentage do you think he's going to end up offense over defense?
Well, he's going to play more than 100% of snaps total, right? It's not going to be 50-50. And he's going to play, I don't know, Liam Cohen did some interview and he kind of offhanded said if we're going to play Hunter 80% of the offensive snaps, it's this shark bite right here. He wasn't that's definitely the plan, but he threw it out there. So that makes me think that number's kind of in his head. So I think Hunter's going to play a lot on offense, 70 to 80% of the offensive snaps would be my guess. And then,
yeah,
I don't know, 50-ish% on defense. I don't know. Again, we're guessing. We're not going to know until the season starts. It could even be a thing where it changes from week to week. There might be some game plans where he's just a bigger part of the offense and then vice versa.
That would make sense.
I'm definitely in on Hunter in fantasy, both dynasty and redraft. And redraft, he's still going in wide receiver 3 range. He's wide receiver 30 in ADP, somewhere around there. And I think his upside is way, way higher than that.
Okay. As I get the sleeper rankings all set up, I've got a couple of other questions coming in from Mark Lawrence, our partner here at ProLine TV. He wanted me to ask you about 2 players. He wants me to ask you about T. Higgins and T. Higgins' role. with the Bengals,
Higgins is
especially
one of my
because of all of
favorite.
his injuries.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing with Higgins, right? The bugaboo, you got to deal with the injuries. But he for a few years now has been just one of my favorite picks in fantasy football. He he just goes too late.
Oh.
I think he was like wide receiver 3 in fantasy points per game last year. I know you got to deal with the missed time, but listen, if a guy misses time, you're not taking a 0 in your lineup. You have guys on your bench or subbing in for him, right? So like when Higgins is down the field, he is still the clear number 2 in this passing game. And the Bengals consistently, since Joe Burrow has been there, are near or at the top of the league in passing volume and passing production. So there's plenty to go around for Higgins to again be like a borderline top 10, top 12 receiver, despite the fact that he's obviously the number 2 guy behind Chase.
Yeah, and it is interesting because you're right. He does seem to. I think what happens is when you start taking a look at number 2 receivers, that whispering in your ear about the injuries before you decide to, that's what it is. And I guess that's why he ends up going a little bit later than he deserves. But I mean, the rankings, the stats tell the story, and he deserves to be drafted a little bit earlier than he normally is. Okay, and then Josh Allen. Talk about Josh Allen, because I've actually picked him up in my last 2 redrafts as my first pick. Now, keeping in mind, in our league, we have something different where when the season's over, any players that are still on your team that are in the real playoffs, we kind of go and do a NFL playoffs thing. So that's why Josh Allen's a little bit more valuable to me, because the longer he goes, the more points I get in the NFL playoffs. But overall, Josh Allen as a fantasy quarterback, is there a particular league where he's better stat-wise?
Well, two quarterback and super flex leagues, he is in the mix to be the first overall pick. In your standard 1 quarterback leagues, he's generally a round 3 pick, and I think he's fine there. I think that's where he belongs. I'm in on these elite quarterbacks this year. When I say elite quarterbacks, it's Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, and I throw Jalen Hurts in there too. Those guys, to me, anywhere in the back half of round 3 or anywhere in round 4, I think they're really strong picks. They're just, one, they give you a big weekly advantage at the position because of their combination of passing and rushing ability. And 2, they're just super safe. Like if those guys stay healthy, we know they're going to finish near the top of, the quarterback standings in terms of fantasy production. And you can compare them against some of the running backs and wide receivers that go in round 3, round 4, not nearly as safe. So I think there's some value in the safety these quarterbacks bring, as well as the upside.
As far as, are you hearing what I'm hearing? There are some people out there talking about look out for potential regression from Jaden Daniels or Bo Nix, year 2, rookie quarterback. Maybe they're trying to compare to what happened to CJ Stroud. Right. I just counter that by saying, look, that might be true to a lot of rookie quarterbacks, but it doesn't usually happen to the great ones. And I think that's what you categorize Jaden Daniels and maybe even Bo Nix. They're on that level that I only expect them to get better.
Yeah, and both guys got improved supporting casts this offseason, which I guess you can say the same thing about Stroud last year. They go out and add Steph Diggs. But Jaden Daniels got Laramie Tunzel, an elite left tackle. He got Deebo Samuel, a legit number 2 wide receiver that they needed. And the thing about Daniels and even Nix is they run. Daniels especially, that insulates Daniels' fantasy value. Even if he does take a step back as a passer, which I would not expect, the rushing production is going to keep his value afloat. And even Bo Nix, Bo Nix gave you more rushing production than you might realize last year if you look at his final stat line. So, and Nix is another guy that got some upgrades, right? They had Evan Ingram. They had a rookie wide receiver in Pat Bryant, pass catching back in RJ Harvey. So, Nix, I don't draft a whole lot. I think he goes a bit too early. We have his ADP there in early round 7. That's too early for me. But Jaden Daniels, again, I'm not worried about Jaden Daniels, but any type of sophomore slump, and I will take him in the back half of round 3 or in round 4.
Yeah, these are my 2 dynasty quarterbacks right there, Mayfield and Nix.
Nice duo.
Yeah. All right. One more before we get into the sleepers. I'm going to ask you about Drew Lock. And Drew Lock, just like Sanders, I thought they played well for rookies, but it's a preseason game. I don't get, we live in a day and age now. I think it's that what is that term that ESPN uses over? What is it? Over something Monday? Over I forget.
Monday morning quarterback.
No, it's the over where we overanalyze, we get too excited about something.
Yeah, I don't know the name, but it's definitely a thing.
Yeah, it's a thing. I wish I could remember. If, I'm sure you guys could put. If I don't remember how to put it. Anyway, the fact is that that's what you're getting right now. It happened again after one preseason game. Everybody's talking about how great Shedeur Sanders is, and Jackson Dart looked awesome, and he should start right away. But seriously, when do you think Jackson Dart, when you're talking about drafting rookies, especially in a redraft, very tricky when they're not even starting?
Yeah, I mean, I think Jackson Dart's pretty much off the radar in redraft. Again, if you get into like a 2-quarterback league and you have room to just stash some quarterbacks, I think you can take them there. Maybe in like a best ball league that goes 20+ rounds, you can take a shot on Dart, but I'm not even doing that. I think Russ and Jackson Dart was impressive in that preseason opener.
Sure.
He had also reportedly been struggling for most of training camp. So, and that's not a surprise, right? Rookie quarterback coming from a kind of a funky college style offense. I think it's going to take him some time. I also think Russell Wilson is still good enough where he's going to be decent and hang on to that starting job for much of the year. I think we'll see Dart eventually, but I think it's going to be like, the final few weeks of the season.
Yeah. I mean, they wouldn't even put Justin Fields back on the field last year in Pittsburgh. I know completely different situations. Giants want to eventually get to Dart, but Wilson did hold off the younger quarterback. All right, now let's go ahead. I'm in the right section. It's time to talk about your top 10 sleepers. So what we're going to do is we're going to go from 10 to 1. And I'm getting ready. What did I pass over? Here he is. Here's number 10 on your list, Drake May.
Yeah, so I talked about liking those elite quarterbacks this year. I also think you can just wait on the position and take, there's 2 quarterbacks on this list we're going to talk about that I think you could just pair them. There's a lot of other guys in this range like Dak Prescott, Brock Purdy. I think, they're nice picks, but Drake May is one of my favorite later round quarterback targets. He played 10 full games last year. In those 10 full games, he was quarterback 15 in fantasy points per game with what I think was one of the worst supporting casts in the NFL, maybe the worst supporting cast in the NFL. Bad offensive line, bad pass catchers. They boobied both those spots this offseason. They add Stephon Diggs. They draft Kyle Williams in round 3. They draft Will Campbell 4th overall, make some other additions in free agency to the offensive line. So it's a much better supporting cast around Drake May now heading into year 2. I think Josh McDaniels is an upgrade in terms of play caller. And the thing about Drake May, I think the passing production is going to improve because of those improvements to his surroundings. This guy also runs too, though. 36.3 rushing yards per game last year in his 10 full games. That was 4th most among quarterbacks. I think he has a chance to give you like 500-600 rushing yards this year. And if he does that, he's a pretty good bat to finish as a top 12 fantasy quarterback.
All right. Now let's take a look at number 9. This is going to be a tight end. And let's see, where do we go from here? Because this looks different than my
Yeah, scroll down and go to so that quarterback drop down. You can just change that to tight end.
Oh, that's right. There it is.
Yep,
yeah,
right
it's
there.
totally different when I move it over to my other screen. Okay, so tight end, and we're going to talk about Jake Ferguson. It was a little bit banged up last year, and as was Dak Prescott. And if both of them are healthy, that's why you like Ferguson as a sleeper, huh?
Yeah, exactly. You nailed it. I think for starters, we're just in on this Dallas passing game. I think, even last year, but Dak Prescott, they passed the ball on 67% of their offensive plays. That was the highest rate in the NFL. Brian Schottenheimer was the OC for that team. He is now the head coach. I think and you look at this backfield, the backfield's horrible. So to me, the Cowboys should be one of the pass heaviest offenses in the NFL. So even though CeeDee Lamb's the clear number 1, I think George Pickens is the clear number 2 option in this passing game. Jake Ferguson, I think, is the clear number 3. And I think there's going to be enough passing volume to go around for him to, maybe even see 100+ targets. We actually have him projected right now for 105 targets. That's the 6th most among tight ends. And if you're a tight end, if you see 100+ targets, you're probably going to finish top 10 at the position in fantasy points. So Ferguson's like the least exciting player on this list. No one gets excited to draft Jake Ferguson. But I think he's a really nice value and can give you like low end tight end 1 production.
Okay. Next up, we're going to wide receiver. So our first wide receiver off the board is an interesting one. This is definitely a sleeper, especially because you're going to the Cleveland Browns. And no, it's not Jerry Jeudy because he wouldn't be a sleeper. So you're going instead with number 61, Cedric Tillman.
Yeah, I mean, Tillman, it was only 4 games last year that we got him in a full-time role. But in those 4 games, 10 targets per game. He actually out-targeted Jerry Jeudy in those 4 games. It was 40 targets for Tillman to 36 for Jerry Jeudy. Tillman was 9th among wide receivers in PPR points per game over that span. He's a big, athletic player. Sounds like he has one of the outside starting jobs locked up. I think it's Jeudy on one side, Tillman on the other. We'll see who wins the slot job, but I think Tillman's going to be on the field for a Browns team that's just, they're going to be trailing a lot. There's going to be a lot of passing volume here.
That is true.
And I do think, I mean, I know the quarterback room is ugly, but like there's enough options there where I think they're going to get decent enough quarterback play. I mean, I think Joe Flacco, I mean, we saw it last year. We saw it with the Browns in 2023 and with the Colts last year. Like he can still play. And if he stumbles, I think one of the rookies can be okay enough. And I think Kevin Stefanski's one of the better play callers in the NFL. So I'm not saying the offense is going to be good, but I think it's going to be good enough to, support Jeudy plus Tillman as fantasy options.
Yeah, what's interesting is you actually have another Brown in here. So, wow, 2 Cleveland Browns in sleeper fantasy. Wow.
Well, they're all going so late. I mean, they're going so late because no one wants them, and I get it. The offense isn't fun, but I mean, someone's going to score some fantasy points here.
Okay. Next up at tight end, we're going to rookie quarterback number 1. We'll be passing to this kid from Tennessee, Chig Okonkwo.
Yeah. Yeah. And Chig was, underwhelming for most of his career until the final 5 games of last season. Look at the final 5 games of last season. 7.6 targets per game, 5.6 catches per game, 43 receiving yards per game. He was 13th among tight ends in PPR points per game over those final 5. Brian Callahan was like incessantly talking this guy up over that final, month plus of the season, saying he's kind of figured it out. Seems like the light bulb kind of finally went on for this guy. And it's not a surprise. I mean, Chig is still only 26 years old. That's actually like peak age for tight ends based on our aging curve research. So I think it makes sense that he's kind of started to figure it out. Like you said, Greg, he gets the big quarterback upgrade in Cam Ward, and the Titans have Calvin Ridley and not much else at wide receivers. So I think Chig could be the number 2 target in this passing game. And you can't say that about many tight ends. So I think Chig is another guy, right there with Jake Ferguson, who you can draft pretty late. I think they have a chance to, finish as top 12 fantasy tight ends.
Yeah, I like one of their rookies, but they're a rookie. And when you got a rookie quarterback, the rookie is usually going to another rookie. You really ain't probably going to work out too much. So you're going to go to your veterans early. All right. Let's now talk about quarterback again. And if this actually comes true, which I think it has a chance to, then Jacksonville might have a chance of maybe surprising a little bit in the AFC South, because really what's holding it back is Trevor Lawrence's development.
Yeah, that and poor coaching, I think. Yeah. So we talked about the improvements to Drake May's supporting cast. I think Trevor Lawrence got even bigger improvements this offseason. You add Liam Cohen, who is coming off an awesome season as the Bucs OC, also had some success as Kentucky's OC in college. And then you add Travis Hunter, obviously, to go along with Brian Thomas Jr. I think Brian Thomas Jr. plus Travis Hunter, that could be one of the very best wide receiver duos in the NFL, even as soon as this season. So, and then the other thing with Lawrence too, is he, not to the extent of Drake May, but Lawrence is another guy who's going to give you some fantasy production with his legs. He's averaged 18 rushing yards per game for his career right now. That's actually 13th highest among active quarterbacks. So I just think, and I think you can draw a very clean comparison between Trevor Lawrence and Baker Mayfield, who Cohen had last year in Tampa Bay. Baker Mayfield was a guy who was kind of underwhelming for most of his career. He hooks up with Liam Cohen with a nice group of pass catchers, has a massive fantasy season. I think Lawrence could do the same thing this year. Okay.
Next up, it'll be one of those Cleveland Browns. So we're going to go back to the Cleveland Browns, and we're going to go to running back, because this is definitely a position for the Browns, at least, that is kind of wide open, except that it's almost by default that at this point, it looks like Jerome Ford is going to be the guy after what happened to Judkins a month ago.
Right. And when we were still waiting on the Judkins thing to sort itself out, right? The legal process is still playing out. The NFL tends to wait until that is decided before handing down any sort of suspension. Judkins he's literally not even signed with the Browns yet, though. Like, he has not practiced in camp at all, obviously. So even when he returns, like, he's going to be behind And it's going to, as a rookie, it's going to take him some time, I think, to get caught up. So I have no idea. Like Judkins might get suspended 4 games, 6 games. He might miss the entire season at this point. I think that's possible. So
we just
definitely interested.
So you have him 42nd.
Yeah, we do. Because again, like I think if it's 4 games, I think we haven't projected out 4 games now.
Okay.
Like
even at 4. If
that's the case, like I think that's about where he makes sense. Because I do think he's their best runner, and I think eventually he would emerge as the lead back. But I think these other 2 guys on the screen right now, Jerome Ford and Dylan Sampson, are worth shots. They're going late enough in drafts. I actually prefer Jerome Ford. I think you're going to hear a lot of people say they prefer Dylan Sampson. He's kind of the shiny new toy as the rookie. But I think Jerome Ford's a good player. He averaged 5.4 yards per carry last year. All other Browns running backs combined for 3.4 yards per carry. So Ford was 2 yards better than the rest of their running backs. He performed very well in a lot of the advanced metrics we look at, yards after contact per attempt, rush yards over expected per attempt. Ford was 5th among 47 qualifying running backs in both of those categories. He can also catch the ball. He had 37 catches last year. He had 44 catches in 2023. And I just think the timing on the Judkins thing kind of favors Jerome Ford. Because if Judkins is suspended, it's going to be at the start of the season. I think it's going to be tough for Sampson as a rookie to kind of overtake Ford by week 1. I think you're going to see Ford open the season as Cleveland's lead back. And he's going to be someone you can maybe even use in your fantasy lineup those first few weeks of the season until either Judkins returns or Sampson, takes on a bigger role.
Yeah, and you hit it on the head as far as the reason why there, especially because of his ability to catch out of the backfield. So, Okay, next up is going to actually we have 3 wide receivers in a row, and we're going to start first of all with another rookie. Matter of fact, this is the first rookie on the board. So you're going to go with
the only rookie, I believe.
The only rookie on the board, and that is Jaden Higgins. And you can see right next to Christian Kirk. So you actually barely have him ahead of the veteran Christian Kirk.
Yeah, it's interesting. If you look at the projections there, that the 166 number for Higgins and the 175 for Kirk, that's our baseline projection. So we actually have Kirk ahead in terms of baseline, but Higgins is much higher in ceiling projection. He is higher upside as the super talented 2nd round rookie. So that's why he bumps ahead of Kirk in their rankings. But yeah, I mean, Higgins was just a prospect I really liked and still like, obviously. Started his college career at Eastern Kentucky, but then he transfers to Iowa State, immediately leads that Iowa State team in receiving yards his first year there. Then this past year explodes for 87 catches, nearly 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns. He actually had the highest Pro Football Focus receiving grade in the entire country among 260 wide receivers with 50 plus targets. So he had an awesome 2024 at Iowa State. He's a big guy. He's 6'4", 214 pounds, ran a 4.47 40 times. So big and fast. And I just think he's going to be that number 2 wide receiver opposite Nico Collins. And yeah, he's not going to threaten Collins' role as the top wide receiver here. But you go back to 2023 when CJ Stroud had that big fantasy season, the Texans that year produced 2 top 12 receivers in fantasy points per game. Nico Collins finished wide receiver 8 that season. Tank Dell finished wide receiver 12. So I'm not saying Jaden Higgins is going to be a top 12 fantasy receiver, but the point is there's room for Higgins to be a fantasy factor, even as the number 2 guy behind Nico Collins.
And Tank Dell, he was a rookie that year, wasn't he?
He was, correct.
Yeah.
And Tank Dell's not going to play this year.
No,
he's out with the knee injury.
Yeah. So right there, rookie did it already under Stroud and his team, even though they didn't have a coordinator, which actually is another good thing. So you get a coordinator that everybody likes, thinks he's maybe the next big thing. So we'll see. All right, Rashid Shaheed, he's next. New Orleans, sure, sort of like the Browns. There's probably not a lot of fans out there that are going to be picking Brown players or Saints players early. But again, you're talking about value this deep in the draft.
Exactly. I actually like the Saints offense a bit better for fantasy than the Browns, just in terms of guys I'm taking. I think Alvin Kamara, Chris Olave, and Rashid Shaheed are all undervalued in fantasy drafts right now because people are just scared of this offense in general. But, the quarterback situation is a concern, but I think Kellen Moore is a big plus for this Saints offense. He consistently runs a lot of plays as a play caller. All of his offenses have run more than 65 plays per game. Just for comparison, the Saints last year were at 60.7 plays per game. So I think you're going to get more play volume from the Saints this year. I just think it's going to be a concentrated offense, right? Like you have Kamara, you have Olave and Shaheed. Juwan Johnson's going to be involved to some extent, but like the rest of the wide receiver core is bad. I just think you're going to have a lot of the targets concentrated on Olave and Shaheed. And Shaheed's just a good player. I mean, last year before his knee injury in week 6, he was sitting 23rd among wide receivers in PPR points per game. He was really strong in the advanced metrics we look at, like yards per target, yards per route. And again, he's just a clear number 2 target in this passing game. I think there's going to be enough production to go around where Shaheed's going to pretty easily beat his ADP.
All right. Next up is on this page, Keon Coleman. And I wasn't the biggest Keon Coleman fan myself. I thought he was overdrafted a little bit. A lot of the dropsies. I thought that going into his final year in college, I expected a little bit more. I just didn't see the guy that I thought I was going to get. And that's why when he was drafted where he was, I thought it's going to take him a little time if he is going to become a good player. So I'm not sure what kind of camp he's had, but he's got Josh Allen, and the Bills do not have a plethora of options. So you like Keon Coleman as a potential sleeper here.
Yeah, Coleman's had a good camp by most accounts. He's some inconsistencies still, but it sounds like he's definitely taken a step forward in terms of like his rapport with Josh Allen, his ability in contested situations. So that's one of the reasons I like him. You also have Khalil Shakir, who went down with a high ankle sprain in camp. Sounds like they expect him back for week 1, but I think maybe still a little iffy. And high ankle sprains are injuries that can affect guys even beyond when they actually return. So all that stuff's helping Keon Coleman. But with Keon Coleman, for me, and I'm with you, Greg, I had questions about him as a prospect. I think he'll never emerge as like a true dominant number 1 do-it-all type of wide receiver. I think he's not going to be that. But he's 22 years old. He came into the league as a young rookie even. He got that draft capital. He was the 33rd overall pick of last year's draft. He's heading into year 2 now on a strong Bills offense that we know is going to finish top 5 in points. And Coleman did some good stuff as a rookie. He averaged 19.2 yards per catch. He averaged 7.7 yards after the catch per reception. He was much better after the catch than I thought he'd be. And he also had a 14% touchdown rate. He led the Bills in both red zone targets and end zone targets. So this is the guy that's going to work deep downfield. He can add some value after the catch. He's going to be a big factor inside the red zone. And again, I just think he's still an ascending player in a strong offense. So as a guy you can take as your 4th or 5th wide receiver and just stash on your bench and kind of see what happens. I think Coleman has a ton of upside.
Yeah, I kind of think of him sort of the way I do at Leggett with Carolina. Like, he's not a number 1. That's not why they drafted him. Just got good value, they thought, where they picked him. But when they get their number 1 guy, he'll look a lot better. His role will be defined, and probably he'll be able to take advantage of not having to go up against number 1 DBs as well. So
yeah, and the Bills' whole mantra is like, I think Allen says, everybody eats, right? Like, it's a team that wants to spread the ball around. They want to kind of divvy up playing time. So again, I don't think Keon Coleman's going to be a top 20 fantasy wide receiver this year, but I think he could be a wide receiver 3 type. He could score 8 to 10 touchdowns easily, just because of the type of player he is and how good this offense is. I think, you could look up at the end of the season, Coleman has 10 touchdowns, and I would not be that surprised.
Okay, now we have a very interesting thing happening here now. And this is why. First of all, we opened up the show talking about, in case you missed it, if you're watching live, we talked about shark bites, and we led off with James Cook's new deal. And we didn't really get into how this could affect Ray Davis for obvious reasons, because we knew we were going to talk about it now. But what's also interesting is last year in our Dynasty League, and again, yes, you can thank me for not expecting James Cook to blow out, but I had so much depth at running back, and I needed some more capital because I needed to find receivers. So I traded a draft pick for James Cook, and it was, I think, a couple other moves in there. And obviously Cook had a great year for Kevin and so forth. But I had Ray Davis left on my team. And I looked at his roster, I don't know when, just maybe for whatever reason, and noticed that he had Braylon Allen. And I had Breece Hall. And I said to him, so I reached out to him a couple of times last year. Hey, you've got the guy, I got the guy, we got the backups, you want to switch? I don't really see a big difference in both of them. I think it would make a lot of sense. I didn't hear from him. So now all of a sudden he reaches out to me about a month ago, and I'm thinking because of the Cook contractual situation, probably, I don't know. And says, all right, if you want to go back down that road, I'd be willing to do that. And I said, all right, well, let me wait and see. Because again, I wanted to see myself. I'm not going to trade him Ray Davis, and then Cook's going to hold out, and I'm going to, but I came back to him after I kind of felt, this was going to be, I said, yeah, I think I'm going to do it. Let's just do it, because I like Braylon Allen. And especially, we don't even know if Breece Hall is going to be a Jet next year. He could go somewhere else. He'll be a starter. Braylon Allen will move in, and he'll be a number 1. And I like Braylon Allen, but I also like Ray Davis. So anyway, make a long story short, which I think is too late. I do think it's just taking a look at your rankings. I think it's a smart move. Just, I get Allen, he gets Davis. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, you can see here they're similar players, right? I think for 2025, I think they're most likely just handcuffs. I think there's an outside chance these guys see enough work to be like, standalone RB3 flex options. That's not likely though. And I even sent you this list with Davis as my top sleeper before the James Cook news broke this morning. So I do like Davis a bit less because, one of his upside paths was like, James Cook either holds out or he gets a little ding in week 2 and decides he's going to sit out 3 games because he doesn't want to risk further injury without a new contract. So Davis fell in our rankings a little bit this morning with the James Cook news, but I still like him at minimum. Again, he is, I just put out this morning, handcuff rankings on draft Shirt, just ranking 1 through 32, the best handcuffs. I kind of have a system for doing that. And Ray Davis came out as our top handcuff. It's based on like the player's talent, the offense he's in, the injury risk to the starter in front of him. Ray Davis came out 1 in that. We already saw it last year. James Cook misses week 6 last year. Ray Davis carries 20 times for 97 yards.
Yeah.
Also catches 3 balls for 55 yards against a good Jets defense. He finished RB12 that week in fantasy points, despite not scoring a touchdown in a tough matchup. So, we already know if James Cook misses time, Ray Davis is a must-start fantasy play. But again, I still think there's a chance that Davis carves out a big enough role behind Cook where he's a fantasy factor. James Cook last year, he only played 48% of Buffalo's offensive snaps. So half the snaps are still available for one of these other running backs. They also have Ty Johnson still that's going to mix in. But there's opportunity for Cook to play 35, 40% of Buffalo's offensive snaps. And then again, just this offense. Last year's Bills team produced the 4th most total running back PPR points. So there's just a lot of production to go around here. James Cook's obviously going to get most of it, but there's enough where you could see Ray Davis pick up enough of the work in this backfield to, again, be a potential RB3 or flex play. But most of the value with him is just the fact that I do think he's one of, if not the best handcuffs in fantasy.
Yeah, and again, just speaking Dynasty, and we're going to get into the Dynasty draft in just a couple of minutes before we wrap up. But that's a whole different story in a way because he's going to have a good career. At some point, I don't think he's going to be handcuffed behind James Cook for much longer. That's because then what has he got, another year or 2? And then, he's going to be at a point where the Bills he's going to want to be a starter and the Bills are going to have Cook and he's going to leave, which is the same thing that I think, like I said, might happen even with Breece Hall, unless, of course, the same situation happens with Cook where the Jets don't give him the deal that we all expected that Breece Hall maybe wanted. So there's so many different variables that come into this, but dynasty wise, I think all 4 running backs are going to be just fine. Hall, Allen, Cook, and Davis.
Yeah, I'm with you. I would say after the James Cook deal this morning that I would rather have Braylon Allen in Dynasty than Ray Davis at this point, just because Allen seems to have an easier path to, like you said, Greg, be that lead back because Breece Hall is not signed beyond this year. James Cook is now signed for another 4 years. So Davis might have to go elsewhere outside of Buffalo before he gets a chance as lead back. So I do think, Allen's the guy I'd rather have. I probably would have said Davis 12 hours ago, but now I would rather have Braylon.
And then next year, if Hall resigns, it's even again. So exactly. We don't know. And then injuries come up. We never know who's going to have them. So there you go. And Hall has had injuries. Cook hasn't. So, all right. Before we go to, we're going to go into our rookie draft. We're going to show you what that looked like a little over a month ago. Before we do that, we have a couple of questions. So let's find out what Jack Does Skits wants to know from you, Jared. What do you think about this?
Yeah, Nico at night. So those picks near the back half of round 1 this year, I think it's a great spot. There are probably like 15 or so like high-end players in fantasy this year that you can usually get 2 of those guys if you're picking at the near the 1-2 turn. It has gotten a bit trickier in that area because we have Puka Nacua with the Matt Stafford injury. We have Malik Neighbors, who is dealing with this toe issue that's kept him out of practice recently. He's been dealing with this toe issue since going back to college. So I'm not sure what to make of that, but those 2 guys have gotten a bit riskier. I still prefer Puka and Neighbors over Nico at that 9 spot, but I also would not fault you for taking Nico Collins. He's a stud. He's going to remain the clear top target in that passing game. And at this point, he feels a bit safer than Puka or Neighbors just because Nico's not dealing with any sort of injury to him or his quarterback at this point.
And again, there he is sitting at number 10. And again,
just behind Puka and Neighbors. Yep.
Yep. And this is the redraft PPR league. Okay, that is Jack's question. Now Mason has a question. All right, we just talked about it with the Bills.
Mason's he's just on the Keon Coleman train with me. It sounds like no question there.
So, okay. Yeah, I mean, look, the good thing is, as we talked about, there are options because the Bills really don't have a number one right now. They just don't. I mean, and I think Shakur, I don't think the Shakur injury is going to be much. He should be fine. He's a tough kid. He sure has come along a lot faster and better than I thought he was. That was a nice find.
Yeah, he's a good player. He's just a completely different player than Keon Coleman, right? I mean, Shakir is the slot, short range, yards after catch guy. Keon Coleman's going to be outside, the contested catch guy, the red zone guy. So they're not really competing for the same type of targets.
Okay, now let's talk about Dynasty draft because people are still making them. People are still getting ready for them. This is a rookie Dynasty draft, of course, I'm talking about. This is what happened in our league. Now, there's a few other teams in here. Oh, that's because I've got this below. Oh, it's not. Well, I'll have to shrink this if I can. Let's see. I think that's it. There you go. So hopefully you can see them. Anyway, so this is what our draft looked like. And did you notice anything when either then or now when you look at it based on, because, we were doing this pretty early.
Right.
If you notice anything that's out of whack, anything that's a little bit surprising?
I'm looking through and I would have thought there'd be more I would change between then and now. I mean, to me, the Judkins pick at 5 was early even then. Now obviously it looks bad. You can't fault it. Obviously didn't know the off-field stuff was happening at that point. But, we all along have had Travion Henderson and Ted McMillan. Greg, I think, I'm not just saying this because it's your show. I think you got the best value in round 1.
Oh, I do. I believe that too. I couldn't believe I got McMillan.
Yeah, again, for us, and we still have it this way in Superflex, it's Ashton Genty, Amarian Hampton, Travis Hunter, Ted McMillan, and Cam Ward. Those are kind of the clear top 5 in Superflex. I think those guys should go top 5. And I think Travion Henderson's kind of a clear number 6. Then you start to talk about. Then you would have started to talk about Judkins versus Igbuka versus Harvey. I think Judkins now you got to push probably into round 2 even.
Yeah.
So Judkins is the one pick that even then I thought was a bit of a reach, and now obviously it looks a lot worse.
Okay. And as far as position-wise, does that look about right? Anything out of whack there, position-wise?
No, I think both tight ends, and one of them went to me at the 203 and getting level in it. I just think those are, and not that the guys that went ahead of them were bad picks, but I just think getting those tight ends in round 2, they're both really strong prospects. They both got top 15 draft capital. I think both those tight ends kind of stand out to me as nice values.
All right. So, and if anybody out there that is watching, if you have any questions regarding this draft, you're going to have your rookie draft come up in Dynasty real soon, and you just want to know anything at all regarding what we did and what you were thinking of doing, just let us know, and I'll pass along the question to Jared, and he'll let you know. So, Jared, before I let you go, just talk about Draft Sharks. Again, you guys, I know you and Shane, back-to-back stud muffins as far as draft accuracy rankings in fantasy football. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was actually Kevin.
Oh, Kevin
English. Yep, he was the most accurate ranker in terms of preseason draft rankings last year among like 225 analysts. He was the most accurate, that's according to Fantasy Pros. So, yeah, we have a pretty long track record of having some of those accurate projections. But really, it's it's what those projections mean for our users. They feed into our draft war room, which is our drafting tool. It's going to sync right up to your league, pull in your league's scoring rules, lineup settings. It's then going to apply our projections to your league to give you customized rankings. And the best part of it is that it live syncs during your draft. So as your draft is happening, it's going to automatically remove players from your rankings. You don't have to do that yourself. And it's going to keep your rankings updated, based on who you have on your team needs, what's available, ADP. It's going to factor all that stuff in to, give you a customized cheat sheet throughout your entire draft.
And again, here's what we started off with. These are the shark bites, and these are just updated by the hour, right?
Whenever fantasy relevant news happens, we're going to write about it and kind of tell you what the impact is.
All right. And you also have what I think is real valuable is the trade chart, trade value chart. And I think that's really cool because anytime I'm putting together a trade now, what I do is to try and do it fairly myself is I'll go there and I'll add up all the points round points based on the draft options I'm going to offer someone, and I'll never not do it that way. This way, if they for some reason don't like it, I know that I'm okay. I wasn't trying to screw them. They might just not want it, but I gave them a fair deal based on points.
Yeah, we have the trade value charts. There is a trade builder where you can kind of go in there. And again, if your league is synced up, it's going to look at your roster. It's going to look at other rosters in your league, and it's going to kind of find the teams that best match what you're looking for and then kind of help you build that fair trade offer. So there's that. There's a trade analyzer where you can kind of put in a trade you're considering and it'll tell you which side of it is better. So we have a ton of tools. Our product development guy, Alex Korf, has been a big part of that. So again, I think at this point we've combined what I think are the best projections and rankings in fantasy football with the best tools in fantasy football. So, I mean, I think we kind of got it all at this point.
All right. Before we wrap up, Kenny's got a bunch of things thrown out here, but I'm just going to pick one. So let's go with the first one.
First pick, Superflex Dynasty Startup Draft. I mean, you can't go wrong with any of those. I mean, I wouldn't throw Hurts in here, but I think Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, you can't go wrong. I think Allen and Lamar are safer just because they have a longer track record of being elite fantasy quarterbacks. But I'm taking Jaden Daniels there. I believe in this kid. I believe in what they're building around him. And he has youth on his side. He's like, 3, 4, 5 years younger than Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson. So it's a little bit of a gamble, just a little bit. But I would take Jaden Daniels with the 101.
Yeah, he's a superstar and he's going to be just fine. So I totally agree. By the way, I'll throw in the second question because the other ones, I think they were continuous because he wanted to let you know that not only that, but that and that. So
yeah, I mean, listen, if Devon Achane's falling to you at the 2-3 turn, that's a smash. I think he should be going at the 1-2 turn. He loses a little bit of value with the half PPR, but I still think he should be going at minimum like early round 2. So Achane at the 2-3 turn, definitely taking him. Bucky, not quite as high, and I do have some concerns just with his size, the fact that he was banged up for a lot of last year. I do still think you're going to see Rashad White and even Sean Tucker be a bit involved in Tampa's backfield. So I think Bucky's okay if you're getting him in like early round 3, but I definitely prefer Achane between those two guys.
Yeah, I think Tucker is a nice little late round kind of sleeper. And if you definitely have Bucky, say, or Rashad, and you're looking to see what you want to do at the end, grab Tucker, especially if you have Rashad, because if something happens to Rashad, boom, you've got that number 2 guy. And because Tucker's a guy even in Dynasty that I'd be like all over. Matter of fact, I've picked him up before. I did drop him just this past offseason because I'm bringing in more rookies, but I had him this past year. So I've got my eye on him and I'm willing to pick him up potentially if I can again, if I need him, if I've got some roster openings. I think once he leaves Tampa, if he has to leave Tampa, unless White leaves and then he moves up, I think he's got a lot of potential.
Yeah, good player. I mean, he was a good player at Syracuse. He went undrafted, right? But he went undrafted because of a health condition. I think he had like a heart issue or something. But good college player. Obviously had the massive game last year against the Saints when Rashad White was out. Tucker's almost like a double handcuff where like if Bucky Irving or Rashad White miss time, like he's going to get on the field and be involved enough where you could be able to use him in fantasy lineups.
All right, that's going to wrap it up. Jared, appreciate it. You've got also, when is your podcast? When do you do that?
So it usually posts on Tuesdays and Fridays on the Draft Sharks YouTube channel, and then wherever you get your podcasts.
Okay, and of course we have links right now you can check out in the description area of this video for all sorts of things, including some of the site sections on the site that we just went over here during the show. And I'm sure we'll get the opportunity at some point to talk to Jared during the season. So Jared, appreciate it as always. I'm sure we'll talk a little golf next year. Maybe in January, February, when things start calming down a little bit in the NFL, and you're not as hamstrung yourself with work, like I completely understand. But yeah, it's going to be a great season as always. Looking forward to it. And thanks for your time as always.
Yep. Thanks for having me, and good luck in all your leagues besides that Dynasty league that we're in together.
Yeah, I hear you. And want to remind everybody too here that we're going to have a live interview later on tonight talking some Arizona State football. So if you're a college football fan, Big 12 fan, Arizona State football fan, check out tonight, 8:00. We'll talk some Arizona State football right here on Proline TV. For Jared Smola of Draft Sharks, I am Greg DePalma, Proline TV.